How's it going, everyone? We are back with Blind Boys Politics. I am Nicholas Rod,
I'm Chris Baker.
and we are back once again for another round of failed elections. And this week we are talking about Marianne Williamson.
A little background on Marianne Williamson is she's 68 years old. She is known as the self-proclaimed bitch. She was not a politician. Um, Her actual job is being Oprah Winfrey's spiritual leader, and she also wrote a book called Top of That. She dropped out because she did not think she would get enough votes, and she wanted someone else that was more progressive to, if they had a better chance than her, she wanted them to take it instead of her. After she dropped out on January 10th, 2020, she endorsed Andrew Yang.
Yep. Now, Marianne had a lot of different policies. We will start out with, and mind you, her policies. The way she wrote them out on her website, on her campaign website, were the pillars to a moral season. And so we will start out with one of the pillars, that being the Department of Children and Youth. She wanted this department as part of the federal government to help reform the education system, as to her, the system was completely flawed and that it didn't really do anything to help children in the future, with their futures, to help them step up in life later on. It went as far as her saying that children need to be rescued and treated as if they're being rescued from a natural disaster. Uh, she said that it's a problem that children have no voting rights and that they have no corporate power. And evidently she believes that needs to change. Overall, though, within her campaign website, she gave no clear indication on how she was going to go about this change and how she was going to really implement this new department. So there isn't much to go on, but that is the first pillar.
Her second pillar was her agenda for the economic justice. She believed that the upper class should be removed and replaced with a more middle class tax cut instead. She believed that the country should stop putting so much money into things such as oil. The specific she cited was over $26 billion put into oil and gas last year alone. Another thing that she wanted was to make sure that the government had power to negotiate prices due to some people not being able to afford their medications. She also wanted to limit the money that the military service, saying that millions of it is wasted per year. Williamson also quoted, she would also say to those who have billion-dollar assets that 3% tax on those assets is reasonable and 2% for those who have $50 million. That is one reasonable thing.
So we move right along into the third pillar, which is a mass mobilization for climate change, to stop climate change. She was a believer in the Green New Deal, which, for those that don't know, a short version of it is that it's a plan to turn all electrical power that we use today into natural energy. In other words, mostly through the use of solar panels. This Green New Deal, when it was first proposed, and I believe even now, to put it into effect nationwide would take trillions of dollars that, of course, we do not have. She also believed that the methane emissions from factory farms would become poisonous to people everywhere, so she wanted those to change. She said that if we don't face these climate changes now, we could be looking at social collapse within 20 years. She also said that it could lead to massive food shortages and millions of climate refugees. Once again, on her campaign page, there's very little information as to how she wants to address this, so you're not going to find much information there, but that is her third pillar.
Her fourth pillar, I think, is one of the more interesting ones. She wants to create a department called the Department of Peace. She believes that there should be a government department focused on specifically waging peace instead of going to war. She believes that where she would get this money from is taking money out of the military fund that is set aside every year to put into the Department of Peace. She stated that the group of desperate people, whether in the United States or from a foreign nation, should be seen as a national security risk. She believes we should look to use preventative conflict as a means of keeping peace in the world, which I don't think this pillar was a very safe idea to take money out of the military fund to create a department of peace, because you're not always going to solve your problems with peace, but that's my own personal opinion.
No, I totally agree. But moving on to her next pillar, again, one of the more interesting ones, in my opinion. It was her pillar for reparations. Uh, she believes that reparations should be paid to African Americans whose families, whose ancestors suffered from slavery. Mind you, we're over a century and a half out from the end of slavery in this country. Obviously, completely understand that slavery was a huge, huge issue that obviously needed to end back when it did. But again, we're a century and a half out. So I don't know how prevalent that is anymore. She also believed that reparations should be paid out to Native Americans who have also seen horrible treatment from Americans over the decades and centuries, really. Um, this money, of course, would be coming out of the government, money that the government just doesn't have. Obviously, our national debt is crippling. As we are standing in a debt of about $26 trillion currently, probably closer to 27 by this point, as it is always rising. And just overall, we don't have the money to spend on things like reparations for things like this. But that was her fifth pillar.
Her sixth and final pillar, it was her healthcare plan. This plan, I could see it going somewhere, but there was too many flaws, not enough detail given, and I think that is one of the reasons that her election didn't do so good. She didn't give enough detail, but specifically on her healthcare plan, she believed that more power needs to be given to the CDC and the FDA in regards to being able to take certain products off the shelves due to the chemicals or substances in them. Now, she also believed that there should be a universal healthcare system. She also wants to end food deserts where people can't even get fresh produce. She thinks fresh produce is a very important thing and not everyone can get it. She says that the hunger needs to be seen as a true national issue in this country, and she would be focusing on that greatly. She believes that the major companies need to be controlled so that they cannot put their own policies into place that cause the people stress, as stress is evidently a huge illness factor in this country.
So those are her 6 pillars, as she called them, that she was going to be focusing on during this election. Now, as for where overall she failed, based on these pillars, I mean, there are so many things we could talk about here. The reparations is, again, just spending money that we don't have on issues that are centuries old at this point. Obviously, the support in the Green New Deal would be crippling economically, again, because we don't have the money needed to pull off such a project. And as Chris said, our world peace situation, Department of Peace, using preventative conflicts, and always trying to have peace. It's a good idea on paper. Overall, though, in my opinion, it can be pretty dangerous when not all countries think the same way.
That is our main goal.
Yeah.
I think her plan could have maybe gone somewhere. They weren't obviously going to get her very far after all, but the lack of details, I think, is what was really getting her in the polls. She wasn't getting the greatest poll numbers because she wasn't really giving all that much detail.
Right. No, absolutely. And yeah, and I think like just one last thing to add in is that the thought of giving children voting and corporate power is a little terrifying, in my opinion.
You think little children having power in corporate America? Oh boy.
Yeah, I don't think I support that, even as someone who's under 18. And that right there was Marianne Williamson and her election campaign, both the ideas and where it failed. If you want to find us on Twitter, you can find the podcast at Blind Boy Politic, both on Twitter and Instagram. You can find myself on Twitter at blinding_aura. That is at blinding_aura. And Chris is, of course, at C_Baker002. Baker, Baker. And that is it for this week. I hope you all enjoy. We both hope you all enjoy. I'm Nicholas Rod.
I'm Chris Baker. See you guys next week when we talk about Cory Booker. Hope you guys are enjoying these mini-series.
Absolutely. See you guys.